Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Sure. First of all, Kimberly, thank you for having me on.
You're
My name is Paul Thornton. I live just south of Boston in a small seaside town called Situate, Massachusetts.
okay. And whatever you want to talk about for your past leading up into your present, we can just stick to leadership or we can stick to childhood, however you want to.
Mhm.
You have the floor.
Well, I've been studying leadership for a long time. It's been my passion. I've come up with a number of simple models or concepts that I think are useful and helpful to really parents, coaches, teachers, really doesn't matter. One of them has to do with leadership styles. I call it the 3 Ds, and one is directing, second is discussing, and third is delegating. And I think parents, teachers, coaches, managers use these 3 styles all the time. Directing is if the person you're dealing with has no experience, they don't know how to do the task, they're clueless, let's say, they need and want direction. So the leader or manager needs to tell them what to do and how to do it. When you use this style, people learn to, listen, to follow directions, to ask questions, to get the task done by the time frame that you give them, you, the manager or leader, give them. The second style is discussing. When you use a discussing style, like we're doing right now, you ask questions. That is, the leader asks questions. Questions about the goal, the plan, the obstacles. You're trying to see how the person is thinking about the work or task they have to get done. How are they viewing it? What steps will they take? And you want to see if their thinking is clear and their approach is going to work and they're going to get it done by the time it needs to get done by.
Do you want to have good retention when you're doing this? Like where you're keeping your employees instead of just firing them to find.
Well, I
What?
think I think if you use the right style, you're
Yeah.
helping people grow and develop. Um, if you're using a discussing style, you're engaging the person, you're getting their thoughts and ideas, so they're more committed and motivated to get the goal done or complete the task, right? The third D is delegating. When you delegate, you're really empowering the person to take ownership of the task, make decisions, take action, get it done, meet the time frame required. When you use a delegating style, people are learning to, work independently, make decisions, influence others, get the resources they need. So my point is there's a time and place for each style. And if you use each style correctly, the person will develop some skills and some insights and knowledge, and that will help them be a more productive and effective, employee, student, athlete, whatever it might be. It's kind of like raising kids. Early on, we're more directing with our children, right? We
Mhm.
tell them when to eat and what they can wear and where they can go, and we give them a lot of do's and don'ts and boundaries and what have you. As they get a little bit older, we start to discuss more. What do you think? Why would you do this? How would it work? What did you learn from the experience? That type of thing. And then when they even get a little bit older, you're delegating. When they go off to college, for example, you want them to be prepared to make decisions, to think on their own, to follow their values, those types of things. So, again, there's a time and place for each of these styles, and they work to help the person grow and develop and mature. that's
Okay.
that's one of the concepts I've taught a lot of managers to use and to utilize in their day-to-day work. The problem, Kimberly, is sometimes one is leaders use the wrong style. If a person's got
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of experience, they know what they're doing, yet the leader is using a directing style. They're telling the person what to do, how to do it, even though the person's done the task 28 times. They don't need the leader telling them how to do it one more time. They know how to do it, right?
So
Uh,
what would not be clicking between the two of them if, they've been told like 25 times or done it 25 times and getting told again? How would you break that barrier to get them to be on the same frequency?
Well, when I would do seminars and workshops and classes, I would try to uh, convince the leader that if you use the right style, you will motivate and engage the employee. Conversely, if you use the wrong style, you're going to demotivate the person. So
Yeah, yeah,
if you're telling your 28-year-old son that he needs to get a haircut and he needs to shave and this and that, you're directing him to do certain things, that's going to turn him off and it's not appropriate.
correct.
So if the person, like you say, knows how to do the task, you don't need to tell them. You just need to say, get this done by Friday at 10 o'clock.
Understood. So there's like no emotion or like there's the boundaries. Get this done.
Mm,
You're directing them. And I like, motivational leadership and transformational leadership. I like those things because, motivating a person to do it, setting short-term goals and long-term goals,
mhm,
that helps, the person have a date, a
mhm.
date of when it should be done and give them enough time and all of that great stuff. So we're like, what you got your degree. Tell me about the degrees you have because you've written 27
Mhm.
books,
Yep.
right?
Yep. I I enjoy writing. It's a hobby, but I have written 27 books. Um, I write every day for probably a couple hours. It's something I enjoy. Um, I I got an undergraduate degree in general studies or liberal studies, and I studied psychology, political science, and management. Those are like three areas I focused in on. And then I got a master's in business, MBA degree, and then I got a master's degree in education.
I
And then
look up to you. I'm going for my second master's too.
good for you. Good for
Thank
you.
you.
And then I started a doctoral program and I took like 18 credits in that, but that wasn't doing it for me. So I'm a dropout there.
Me
So
too. Me too.
I didn't finish that. So,
Yes, sir.
but anyway, I'm a big believer in lifelong learning. There's lots of ways to learn, like podcasts, for example, taking courses, reading books, articles. There's all sorts of things you can do every day to expand your horizons and learn something new. So I think that's really important for everybody.
It's
Teacher, parent, doesn't matter.
leading in regular like at a McDonald's versus corporate world. Are those two different leadership styles or should there be different leadership styles in the way you train somebody at McDonald's and treat them versus how you treat them in a corporate world?
That's a good question. I think there are certain things about leadership that are fundamental, and it doesn't matter where you're leading.
Mhm.
I think the first thing the leader needs to get clear on is what do they believe and value? You know, what are my beliefs and values? It doesn't matter whether I'm at McDonald's or at a big IBM or a big corporation, what do I believe in value? I got to get clear on that. And that takes a long time, to get crystal clear on your beliefs and values. And you need to then operate by those. You need to model those and be consistent in how you practice those values, right? That gives you credibility. But in terms of, the details would be a little bit different, of course, but the principles of treating people and communicating with them and motivating them and delegating or directing or discussing, those things all are the principles, I think, carry over. It doesn't matter where you're, applying them. As I say, I think these things apply whether you're a parent, a teacher, working at McDonald's or General Electric. It really doesn't matter. These core leadership principles apply wherever. And the leader is basically trying to help the person perform at a better level, right? They're trying to help them improve. They're trying to help them, be a higher performer in whatever they're doing. So, yeah, I don't think it matters.
Okay, and can you tell me an excerpt from your book that applies? Because I'm pretty sure you wrote about these 3Ds in a book,
Yeah,
right?
great.
So tell me more about this book, and like another excerpt from the same book about the same thing. Like give me um examples and elaborate because
Yeah,
I know the book is thick.
yeah. Well, I interviewed, I'll give you one example. I interviewed the fire chief in the town that I live in.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him how he used each of the 3Ds in his operation. And he said, in an emergency situation like a fire, you need to use a directing style. You have to make decisions quickly. You have to tell people to do whatever they need to do to put the fire out. So it's a lot of directing. Do this, don't do that, take care of this. You got this task. A lot of direction. You don't have time for, holding a meeting and having a discussion and asking people's opinions and things like that. So in a crisis, you want someone, the leader, to be decisive and make decisions. Now, he said, though, after the fire's over and they're back at their location, he might use a discussing style. He might get all of the crew together and have a discussion about what worked, what didn't work, what can we learn, what changes do we need to make next time, etc. So he's using discussing there. Delegating, if he's got some special project that needs someone to work on. First thing he said, he considers people's interests and he tries to get someone who's interested in a particular area. If that's what, the task is, he will talk to that person and then delegate the task to them because he knows they have some skills and they have some interest in doing it. And, that's what he does. So he could come up with a lot of different examples of how he uses each style depending on the situation and the factors and the urgency of getting things done. So that was one example.
Okay, very good. Well said, by the way. Also wanted to know about Toastmasters. For those who do not know about
Mhm.
Toastmasters, can you tell me a little bit? I know what it is, but can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's an organization that's great. It helps people become better presenters. Um, I was never formally a member. I have attended a couple sessions. I was asked to speak at one, but it is a great program, and they go through a lot of the steps that you need to take to become an effective presenter. Like making eye contact with the audience, using gestures, having a well-organized talk that or point that you're trying to make, using appropriate examples. But I think the real good thing about it is they give you an opportunity to practice. Each meeting, they have a number of people get up and speak. And after they speak, they get feedback from various people in the audience. And again, that's how we learn. So
Yes.
if you want to become a better presenter, better speaker, you need to practice like anything, tennis, hockey, whatever skill you're trying to get better at, you need to practice, get feedback, reflect on it, make some changes, and keep getting better and better. I'm sure the first podcast you did or the podcast you do these days is better than the first one you did,
Exactly. Yes.
And for
Yes.
everybody. I mean, I'm no different. I was a college teacher, and my first class was awful. I was terrible, but I worked at it and got feedback and kept, I was motivated to find out what I needed to do to really have a great class and really hit home runs in class and what have you. So I kept working at it and eventually got there.
I see somewhere where you received a United Technologies Award for extraordinary management effectiveness twice. Tell
Mm-hmm.
me about that award and what does it mean to you?
Well, it was unfortunately I was involved. I was in human resources, and I was involved in a significant layoff that the company was having. We had to have a reduction because Boeing was one of our big customers, and they were having a cutback in the number of orders for us. And it was major. So we had to cut, let's say, 200 engineers. And I was the focal point for organizing it and briefing the managers and laying it all out and doing all those things. Like any project, you have to have clarity on the goal and the steps and the plan and the time frames and all that. So I think I did a pretty good job in laying it all out and making the managers comfortable in terms of what they had to do to notify their employees. And it was, it's very painful going through a layoff like that. So anyway, that was what I got it for.
Tell me about your first management and leadership course that you taught and how many people was there and how did you get over that first hurdle of teaching?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a problem with public speaking myself and I want to make sure that I learn from what you have to tell me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good question, Kimberly. And it's something everyone, needs to work at and get better and better at. I found that I had to think about what is the one big idea I want to get across. First time I taught, I was trying to cover way too much. I was, racing through it. I wasn't taking my time. I didn't have good visual aids, and I was not engaging the audience as much as I should.
Mm-hmm.
So what I learned is this idea of having a big idea. When I go into a leadership class, I might think about what is the one big idea I want to cover today, like the 3Ds. I might say, okay, I want to cover these 3 styles. And that's my big idea. That's what I want to get across. So when students leave the class, I want them to have an understanding of each style and when to use each style. So then I got to think about, how am I going to develop the points? What examples, stories, metaphors, visual aids, what am I going to do to explain it so it's clear and relevant and they understand it? Including, I would often use a lot of role playing in my classes. So getting them to practice, like we talked about before, practice is important, but getting them to practice, okay, you're the manager, you're using a directing style, you need to direct your employee to do X, Y, Z, and, just a little role play to get them practicing it, and then talk about how did it go, what worked, what didn't work, what communication breakdowns might have occurred. So anyway, that's kind of was my evolution of I was trying to cover way too much initially, and then I figured out, no, I need to cover like one or two major ideas in the class and have good examples and good, stories to tell and have some application. How can I have them apply it so they can learn it?
You make it sound like you recorded it and actually rewatched it, or did you just off your brain remember the whole session and just did it, the plan, made a plan for it?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you one thing I do, which I think is very important. I would invite various people in to observe me teaching the class. For example, I invited the theater professor. I invited the director of teacher effectiveness at my college to come in and observe me, my dean, my boss, and I wanted them to observe me teaching a class. And then afterwards, I would sit down with them and discuss what did I do well? What could I have done differently? How could I have handled this question maybe a student asked? So I would get their observations and their feedback. And some of it I said, yep, you're right. I need to do that differently. And sometimes I said, nah, I don't quite agree with that. I'll think about it, but I'm not going to, immediately change based on what they said. But
Did you practice yourself? Like
oh yeah,
actually okay, practice. Okay.
yep. I used a lot of PowerPoint slides in my presentation. So in preparing for my classes, I would have my slides all laid out. I would have the application things that I was going to do and things like that. I'll also tell you, my wife was teaching the same courses I was teaching.
Get out of here. That is a major
Not
habit. Like
not
y'all
at
have
the
in common.
not at the same school, but at a different college. She was teaching principles of management and a few different ones. But anyway, organizational behavior was one we both taught. But anyway, she and I would have a lot of discussions about how do you cover this topic? What do you do in terms of case studies or role plays, or what points do you make? So we would have a lot of discussion back and forth, and that gave me additional information about, what I maybe could do in my class differently. And I think I helped her a little bit too, what she could do in her class differently. So that was kind of a unique benefit that I had that, extra feedback I could get from my wife. So,
Well said, and that is awesome. Where do you see yourself going in the future?
well, I write a lot, as we've said. I write articles. I write a monthly article for Smart Brief on leadership, and I
I
write
see.
I write books and other things. And I speak at a few conferences per year, and I do a training program at a company here and there, not that often. So I kind of see myself continuing to do that. I'm always trying to improve the books I'm writing in terms of the clarity and making an impact on the reader. So I'm always trying to learn there. And doing podcasts. I'm trying to get some messages out there that I think will help people be more effective and successful in doing their job. And I think I have some tools and techniques that will help them. So that's what I'm
I,
trying to do.
I like how you put your favorite question is am I adding value? Tell
Yeah.
me about what you mean by that.
Well, I think anytime I'm in a meeting or in a family gathering, in a discussion with a bunch of colleagues, I'm thinking about, am I adding value to the discussion? Am I helping the group define the problem or establish the goal or look at it from a different angle? Am I helping them see things more clearly, or not? Maybe I'm not. So that kind of motivates me to think about, what can I do in this situation to, like I say, add value to the clarity, the way people are thinking about it. So that's kind of the way I use that.
Well said. And your comment, be a leader, make a difference.
Mhm.
Some people don't understand what that means. You can make, I believe in my own words is you make a difference, being a leader. Can you elaborate on what that means to you?
Yeah, good point, Kimberly. Be a leader, make a difference. I mean, do something that's going to have a positive impact to improve the current situation. I think that's what leaders do. So rather than just sit back and say nothing, or hold back on what you're thinking, speak up, make a point, say something that will be positive and helpful and encouraging. So that's what I'm kind of getting at. Don't hold back. Don't regret it later on. Like, a day later, it's like, oh, I should have said something in this meeting, but I kind of, I don't know, I was afraid, or I didn't want to, or I don't know, they have some excuse. So be a leader, make a difference, add value, speak up, contribute, share your ideas. Yeah, and do that, and you will be, taking a leadership role. Sometimes we take leadership roles in very small ways, and other times they're big ways, So,
And how can the people reach you? Unfortunately, we're out of time. How can the people reach you?
okay, I am very active on LinkedIn, so they can find me there. Just put my name in. I also have a number of books you mentioned earlier that are on Amazon, and they're all very short. I write short books, like 80 to 100 pages, most of them. I, again, try to cover one or two big ideas in my books. So if you want to learn more about some of these ideas, namely the 3Ds we talked about, I have a book on that you can get. And they're all very inexpensive, like $4.99. They're not expensive books, so you can read them quickly. I'm sure you'll get something out of it. So that's another way to learn more about me.
Very good mental critical thinking. So I want to thank everybody. Stay on the line, Mr. Thornton. I want to thank everybody for joining my show today. Y'all take care, be safe, and I'll see y'all guys next time.
Never waste my time. You are out.